This episode of The Rookie Hunter is sponsored by North Arm Knives. North Arm Knives are handcrafted and sold directly through a father and son team right here in British Columbia. Choose from a selection of outdoor knives, kitchen knives, and the brand new folding knife from northarmknives.com. They ship internationally and guarantee all their work. Callie and I use their products and give them our stamp of approval. Go to northarmknives.com. Hey guys, it's been a little while. Welcome back to Rookie Hunter. This is episode 41, and my name is Mike Peterson. As always, I am joined by my good friend and co-host Kelly Mullner. Today, we were very excited to have Chris Barker in the studio with us. He's with the Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia. He's going to let us know about some of the programs that have been done in the past and some of the things that we're working on now. He's also got some good stories for us, so we hope you enjoy this one. You might have noticed a bit of a change when you're looking at the podcast in iTunes or on our website. We did update our logo, and we've got some explanations on why we changed it and why we chose the design that we did. But we're going to save that for the Ask Us Anything episode that we've been saying we're going to do for quite some time now. But that episode is going to have to wait until I get back. I'm heading off to Spain and Portugal this Friday and won't be back until July 12th. So as soon as I get back, we're going to make this episode happen, I promise. If you want to contact us, go to our website. It is therookihunter.com. From there, you can find links to our social media. You can see what we've been up to, some of our gear, all kinds of good recommendations up there. So head over to therookihunter.com and don't be shy to send us an email. If you're not going on the website, our address is therookihunterpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to help us out, you can always donate to the show. That does help us out big time. It helps us keep the show going. But if you can't, that's no problem. You can just leave us a simple rating or review in iTunes, and that just helps more people find the show. So thank you for doing that if you haven't already. As I said, this will be our only episode for the rest of June here, but we will be back in mid-July, so hang tight until then. And thank you, as always, for supporting the show. Sit back, relax, crack a cold beer, and enjoy episode 41 with Chris Barker. For it then?
Yeah.
All right. So I think this is episode 41. I should check before I do these things, but cruising along here. And we're lucky to have a guest in the studio, which is always nice to have somebody here rather than over Skype. So today we've got Chris Barker. If you don't mind, give us a bit of an introduction about your background in hunting and where it led you to today.
Alrighty, well, thanks for having me, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. Originally, I was born in the UK, and I used to go fishing on the dams and stuff in the UK with my grandfather, so that kind of got me to the interest in the outside experiences. When we immigrated to Canada, we moved to Prince George. We still fished a bit, and then ended up in Vernon, so that's kind of where I ended up meeting a bunch of friends, and we still kept fishing, but a couple of guys, same as you guys were talking about bird hunting, started off bird hunting and then shot that first deer, and then, as you say, the rest is history.
How old were you when you came over?
When we moved to Canada, I was 10 years old.
Okay.
Probably didn't start hunting until I was 20, 21-ish. So again, late, not like going out with your father and stuff. And one of my good friends in Vernon, Rod Ellis, is the guy that led me down this path. So
Cool. So yeah, I guess there's a bit of crossover with your background. Obviously, you've got a lot of experience now, but you also got into it late in the game, which is kind of cool. So I could imagine coming from the UK to, where do you say, Prince George?
Yeah.
Was a bit of a eye-opener, as a big change, or?
You know what, I kind of looked at it, at first I didn't really want to leave the UK, but then once I got here, I'm a mountain. I love the mountains. So once I saw the mountains and the bush, then that was it. I was done. I was in seventh heaven at that point in time.
I bet.
So.
And then when did you come down to Vernon?
So probably moved to Vernon probably back in 74.
Okay.
Graduated from VSS in 1980. Kind of worked around. Now I'm in construction, so site superintendent. So I've been fortunate. I had my own business, so I could kind of make my own hours when hunting when I was younger. So from that period of 24 on, I used to bugger off for September for 2 to 3 weeks and just do whatever we were doing and
living the dream. Yeah,
living the dream. And met a buddy up north, and he goes, if you guys want to come up here moose hunting, we can do that. So that's when we started getting and moved from the deer to the moose and the elk and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Probably mid 80s, I guess, in that area there. But so yeah, now I live in Kelowna and site superintendent in town, and Wild Sheep Society of BC. I've been probably on their board for 18 years.
Oh,
I was
wow.
treasurer, president for 7 years, and I've been a director since I retired from president. And then I'm also sit on the Wild Sheep Foundation board in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
And I'm in my second 3-year term of that.
Perfect.
Cool.
So,
were you involved in some organizations before that too then, or?
Yeah, actually, before I got into the sheep, I was involved with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation
Okay.
when they were in Canada. So when I was I lived in Victoria for 30 plus years after I left the Okanagan. And when they were there, I got on as a committee member, and then I co-chaired that for 2 or 3 years. And then they pulled out of Canada and kind of left that conservation void.
Yeah.
And then another friend of mine, another one of my hunting partners, got me into the Wild Sheep Society of BC. So that progressed me down that path.
Right.
And continued on the conservation side, giving back.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now it interferes with my hunting season, so I'm jealous of you guys.
Did you find that it took a while to evolve from the, going from the deer to the moose and then into the conservation side, or was it all kind of at once? You just recognize the importance of that conservation piece?
I think it kind of dawned on me fairly early on. I'm not sure why it did. Gray Thornton has got a great piece, and I'll try and track it down for you guys and give it to you. But it's the evolution of a hunter, and he calls it the 6 stages of a hunter. And it's, we're starting off the beginning of hunter where you just want to shoot whatever you can.
Right.
Then if you start looking at trophy, I hate the word trophy animals.
Yeah,
but you look
likewise.
at mature animals, and then you start looking at that, you become selective in what you're hunting.
Yep.
It's not about what you shoot or the quantity, it's the quality, and then, your experience. Mm-hmm. And at some point it shifts into that giving back component. And, for me, probably it happened a bit earlier, but I think what I'm seeing now, just by our Wild Sheep Society of BC members, guys your age and younger are starting to come and join, and they're looking at giving back. A great example was Gray Thornton was at our convention, and it was just when they introduced the Less Than One Club for national. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but basically anybody that's never shot a sheep before is a Less Than One Club. Wild Sheep Foundation does a drawing at their fundraiser or their convention where they give away 3 sheep hunts to nobody that's ever shot a sheep. So what he did is in our convention, there was 350 people in the room. So he got everybody in the room to stand up. Everybody stands up, and we're looking around. And I'm thinking, what's he doing here? And he goes, anybody that shot 5 sheep, sit down. Anybody that's 4 sheep, sit down. He got all the way to 1. Anybody that shot a sheep, sit down. So looking around, and half the room is still standing. So half the people in that room had never shot a sheep, but they were at our convention,
Right.
either giving back through conservation or it was something that they were interested or passionate about. So that really sends a message of where I think we are as hunters today.
For sure.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been mine and Kelly's, evolution as well. When we first started hunting, it's kind of exactly what you laid out there. I think we were sort of unaware of some of the issues that we're up against here in BC, and I think we really felt like wildlife populations were all in they were all healthy and doing very well, and there weren't any problems. And then once we started talking to guys like Jesse Zeman from the BC Wildlife Federation, it was kind of like a smack in the face when you realize that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and that's the focus of our podcast has shifted a bit more to the conservation side of things because we realize it's important, right, for us as we continue to hunt and for future generations as well. So if we don't do something now, we're going to be in trouble down the road.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. So, I mean, it's you guys have realized it at an early stage where you're at. So you're still kind of in that evolution of enjoying going out and hunting the experiences, but you're already in that mode of starting to give back and that conservation minded thing. And fortunately for me, I started hunting, like I said, in the early '80s. Well, mule deer populations in the Okanagan Valley were fantastic at that time. You could be pretty selective in what you wanted to hunt and shoot, and so it was lucky that way. And I mean, I cougar hunted as well in the winter, and we used to success on cats was pretty phenomenal at that point in time too. So it's I think it's a combination of stuff that's going on, and it's stuff that we need to address. And move forward with it.
What was some of the biggest trends you've seen over that period of time?
I think it was, to me, and this may sound a bit selfish in some aspect, but that entitlement that it was almost our right to go out and shoot something.
Right.
Where to me, I think when you buy a tag, you're just buying the opportunity to hunt.
Yeah. So
you're not buying the right to shoot an animal. You're buying the opportunity to go out and experience the hunt and enjoy the hunt with your friends or whoever, or however, or family, or whatever that is. So I think that was that evolution kind of in that, I don't know if it was the late 90s, early 2000s, that bit of shift. But I can tell you now, in talking to, Jesse and the BC Wildlife Federation, that whole shift. And again, it's a younger group of guys coming in that are saying we need to be focusing on conservation. We need to be looking at habitat. We need to be looking at predator-prey relationships, development. What can we do to bring these populations back to where they should be?
Yeah, and I know one of the things that we had Shane Mahoney on recently, and one of his projects is trying to get the relevance back. Like, why is it relevant that we continue hunting in a modern world? So I think that's a cool topic as well. Just, the urban versus the rural crowd, and just making sure everybody understands why we're doing this. And
yeah,
that's a challenge too.
It's a huge challenge. And like I said, I mean, my hat's off to you guys, because I think this is one of our first steps in getting that conservation messaging out. It's not, we don't need to preach to the converted. We need to preach to the non-converted. We need to affect those mindsets in Vancouver, Victoria, why we hunt, what we put back in time-wise and dollar value-wise.
Yep.
I often joke about it, but the time I put in now affects how much I get to hunt.
Right.
By what I do going around to board meetings and conservation stuff. It affects how much I hunt. So
for sure. How do mule deer populations look now, after we've had some pretty major fires throughout the last 12, 13 years or whatever it might be? The Okanagan Mountain Park is kind of a good example. It seems like Kelly and I don't really have a reference like you do as far as what things were like back in the mid 80s and stuff like now, but it seems like mule deer populations are on the rebound in this area, but maybe I'm wrong.
You know what? I'm going to have to be a little ignorant here. I haven't followed the mule deer populations because I've really been focused on sheep over the last probably 10 to 15 years. I think in certain areas they may be coming back. Okay. I think we need to be, the biggest thing that I think that affects our mule deer populations and whitetail and even some of the elk populations, the amount of access we have.
Right.
We need to limit the amount of access. If you want to go hunt, and I know you guys, talking to you real briefly, you're not afraid to go work to get an animal. So the amount of crisscross roads up through Big Little White and then all the way down south, I forget the highway number, but it's like a main highway down there.
33.
Yeah, 33, and then there's a gravel road. Is it the 201 or something they call?
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure actually, but I know what you're talking about.
Those roads will, back then there was only a few roads and logging slashes here. Now they're crisscross, so you've got a clump of timber here and a clump of timber there. Hunters can access all around that piece of timber, so there's not really a sanctuary for wildlife to be there. So I think if we need to start deactivating roads, if we can, and that's something we can do through forestry. I don't think it's our responsibility. I think if we're logging timber and we need to deactivate those roads, deactivate it and leave that habitat for the critters there.
Yeah. I know we've seen a bit of backlash, and I don't know if it's more so in Alberta as far as removing access into the backcountry. But to us, it kind of makes sense that that's something that needs to be done, because it's just way too easy to go out there and you've got snowmobiles and quads and dirt bikes and stuff like that, which is not good, especially when you're dealing with stuff like caribou and all that kind of stuff too, right? So seems like pretty simple math, but
yeah, and we've got to sell that message to our own our own people that we're dealing with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I'm going to probably get a bit of backlash for saying that, but
right.
I think in the overall picture, it comes back to the message what we're sending, and is, what are we doing it for?
Yeah.
Do you want to shoot the last animal, or do you want to make sure we've got enough animals that everybody can enjoy what we're doing? And
exactly.
That's bottom line is what it boils down
yeah.
to.
Yep.
For sure.
And the you own it mentality, which we've talked to Jesse about. In the States, they really have that. They own the public land mentality, and up here it's kind of taken for granted, some people. But yeah, I mean, it's not about taking the last fish out of the lake or the last animal off the hill. It's about making sure they're there for other people too.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But can we just want to go back to the Wild Sheep Society of BC and kind of the history of that and your involvement?
Yeah, so Wild Sheep Society actually started, so this is our 25th year anniversary coming up next March. It started in Lillooet by 4 gentlemen. I can't remember them all. Tim Cody, Lex Ross, I want to say Dave McBride, and I have to apologize, I can't remember the last gentleman that started, but they were concerned for our wild sheep populations and they wanted to do something about it. So they started off. Our actual first convention was in Williams Lake, and I can't remember the attendance on it. But that's kind of where it started off. And again, my hunting partner Mike Southern, he's the one that got me into. I ended up on a sheep hunt with him, and again, we'll delve into stories, I guess, in a bit. But he got me involved with it, and he'd been on the board. He'd been to a couple of conventions, then he got on the board as a director. So probably about 5-6 years in, I joined the board, and then, like I said, I've been on the board ever since. And our board stayed the same. We've got 12 directors, president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. So just set up like a normal society. Yeah. And at that time, we just published a newsletter, and, if we could do any hands-on projects, we did. Just that kind of thing. And then it's just like it was a growing of the organization, more about making the organization aware of what we wanted to do and how we could do it. The last 2 to 3 years, we've kind of got where I feel we can make a significant impact.
Right.
Just with dollars and projects and just the network of people we've got going on. And again, I'll come back to your guys' age group. We got some new board members this year that you guys are kicking ass, if I can say that. But I mean, these guys are motivated and
great.
They get the picture.
Yeah.
One of our directors, Cal Stetler, he does a Jurassic Classic for partnership.
Okay.
He's going to chapter affiliates meeting this week in Missoula, Montana. I said, we need to send these new guys down. I know everybody. We need to have these other guys go down and do that interface, get that comfort level, and the amount of motivation and involvement that these guys have. It's really cool to see. So I'm excited where we're going and what we can potentially achieve over the next few years. But some of the cool projects that we've done, like all the sheep in Okanagan Mountain Park.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about this because I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So all the sheep in Okanagan Mountain Park, I moved in there with my horse trailer.
Wow.
And I always kind of joke about it. I said, they give me, I got my truck, my trailer. We load the sheep in. I got no paperwork, and I'm driving around the province with a bunch of sheep. And I'm thinking, where do we want to put these babies?
Yeah.
So where did they come from?
So the original transplant came out of Ashnola.
Okay.
They had good numbers down there, and it was before the mite started showing up.
Are they native to that area?
So that whole park, I guess we delve into the valley a bit. That was all historic sheep habitat at one time. So the amount of ingrowth that's occurred over the last probably 80 years, kind of why the sheep weren't using it. So after the fire in 96, we created all that sheep habitat there.
Right.
And and the same on the west side of the lake, Shorts Creek, had historic populations. There was a transplant out of Shorts in 72 or 73 that went to the U.S. So kind of that whole, I kind of look at it from Shorts Creek all the way down to Summerland was probably all historic range.
Mm-hmm.
All the way from Kelowna, so the park, all the way down to the U.S. border is all historic sheep habitat. So we pretty well got sheep on the east side of the lake all the way to the U.S. border right now.
Cool.
So some of the burns we're looking at is actually connecting that habitat through
Okay.
there. So, but I guess if I get back to that transplant,
Yeah.
Daryl Stepaniak was the guy that was instrumental in making it work, working within region. Brian Harris was a regional biologist at the time. And Daryl was doing some disease stuff, and there was some issues with some sheep, and Brian said, after the fire, we got this habitat, can we get some sheep in there? And they put it all together, and I said, okay, I'm coming up. And they had a drop net set up. They fed the sheep for a week. They had them coming in, and the net went down, and everybody comes rushing out of the horse trailer and put the weight on the sheep, and you blindfold and hobble them, take some blood and serology off them, and some swabs out of the nose and their butts, and throw them in the horse trailer. And I think we had 26. I think the first one was 26 that we went up, and we loaded onto the barge, and then we barged them across the lake to the park, so just south of Rattlesnake Point, Rattlesnake Island. Yeah. They barged them across, we let them go there, and so that's kind of where the ewes and lambs are kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
I think the rams kind of move through that whole range. I know they go all the way back down to Penticton and Ellis. Second transplant happened about 2 weeks later.
Sorry, what year is this?
This would have been, I'm trying to think, it's 96, 98. So it would have been, I think, 2000.
Okay.
When the first one went in.
Right.
Then we stuck another, I want to say 10 or 12 in there. So the first two transplants were around 36 animals, I believe. And then the third transplant happened about 2 years later out of Tranquil. So they came out of Kamloops.
Okay, yeah.
So we brought Kamloops genetics down. Mission Winery actually cut the fence to the park, the game fence, and then we backed up the horse trail, and we let another, I think, 15 go through the Mission Winery property there. So Brent Tinks had to arrange that. So we let those in. So that was the original transplant. And then I think we're around 100 sheep right now. So we kind of just right there. I think there's some predation going on.
Yeah, right.
We should have better numbers with the habitat that we've got in there. So it'd be nice to see if I know some cougars came out of there this winter. If we can get some coyotes and stuff, we can get our lamb recruitment now. But if we get to that 150 sheep number, 150 sheep in that area, I think we'll be in really good shape. We can get some age class on our rams, because I think our age class is right like at that 8-9 years old.
Wow.
It would be coyotes and cats mostly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's some wolves there because the wolves pushed some rams into the winery there last year.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike and I have done a couple of big loops around that whole, like up to Divide and back down, and we did see some what looked like wolf sign.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so they've been roaming up there too, so they need to, I guess, disappear.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about the wolf call, and we took a bit of shit for it, but we've always said that it's necessary in those types of situations to go in there and control the predator populations and that, because they'll rebound, they'll do okay, and if it's a matter of protecting the sheep, and then that's what has to be done. People don't like that, but
I always say you got to manage everything.
Yeah.
To one thing, you can't just manage ungulates to a number.
Yeah.
You have to manage your predators the same way, no matter what.
For sure.
Like my rule of thumb is if we stick our finger in it, we usually screw it up.
Right.
But we got to manage it to the best of our abilities, the best science that we've got at our hands at that time.
For sure.
Yep.
Well, it must be pretty rewarding now, like, what is it, 16, 17 years later, to see them doing well in the park and knowing that you put them there physically. So
yeah, no, it's pretty cool. Like I say, Daryl Stepaniak, he was pretty key in that as well. So I know it was one of his legacy things too. But I mean, if that's something that remains a legacy, it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
My bigger vision is, projects that we're working on right now is we're trying to burn, basically, we got funding right now in place for Penticton and Ellis Creek through the Swipey Fund, so the UBCM, which is municipalities,
Okay.
for the interface burn stuff. So Penticton and Ellis, hopefully we can be burning next year. And then we're looking at Carmi, McLean, basically from Penticton to OK Falls.
Okay.
So we're trying to reinstitute that habitat, put migration corridors in, make sure we're burning where there's no access.
Right.
And then I want to look at burning from basically Bear Creek all the way to Shorts Creek on that northern side. Long-term goal would be burn from Bear Creek all the way over to the Coquihalla on that high ridge stuff. And we could have all that connected habitat back again for California bighorn sheep.
Wow.
Cool.
So, that's kind of big picture, recent stuff. We just did a burn up into Shody this year that we funded, I think, $25,000. So stone sheep habitat.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Partnered up again. And this is the other cool thing is most of this conservation stuff's now happening. Everybody's partnering up. North Peace Rod and Gun Club,
Right.
Guide Outfitters, BC Wildlife
Yeah, that's
Federation,
great.
Wild Sheep Society of BC. The outfitter in the area helped in kind.
Good.
So, I mean, it was a $35,000 burn. We burned 1,100 hectares of winter sheep range for stone sheep.
Wow.
So
Awesome.
we're back doing some burns again up north.
What's all involved with making those burns happen? It seems like it'd be a pretty big undertaking to line that up.
That's been the big issue, and ministry used to do all those burns
Okay.
at one time. And I mean, again, I don't want to assume too much, but I think there was, I don't know if it was liability or capacity that they just didn't bother undertaking them. The burn that we did up there, Alicia Woods kind of put it together, and then obviously with ministry support. So it's almost like an NGO government partnership to do habitat improvement. If that's what we got to do to get it to work, then so be it. Down here, like I said, I've been working with John Davies. I talked to Andrew Walker. He put me in touch with John. I said, John, this is kind of an idea. And then he kind of was explaining to me about the Swipey funding and the FEST funding that we can apply to fund these burns. So we're going to use money that's set aside for interface burns to actually help sheep.
Right.
But it's also helping bring down fire load for these for municipalities in their area, so we don't end up with a fire like we had in '96. It just burned rampant through, and we can actually control it, bring the fuel loads down, help our sheep out. Well, and if we help sheep, we're helping mule deer.
Yeah, exactly.
And grouse, we're helping a whole bunch of other species. Even I keep talking about sheep because that's what I'll do, but
That's okay. Yeah, it might be a bit of an obvious question, but why are these burns so important for?
And we kind of touched on it a bit. It's just that the ingrowth that we've seen within the last 100 years within the valley. I think if you can go back and look at pictures, I always like looking at those old pictures. Some of the bars in town and stuff.
Oh yeah,
and they have the old pictures, and you can look at them. If you I always look at the hills, and it's like, oh, look at all that grassland that was there. Yeah, and that was all timbered.
Right.
So that's what we've lost, right? So I mean, that's probably a big impact on our mule deer populations.
Yeah. We've become very good at putting out fires.
We're extremely good at putting out fires.
Yeah.
So I think, again, part of the sales pitch to people in, Penticton, Kelowna, we need to burn these, especially West Kelowna. We need to burn some of these areas, and you won't see those big hot fires that we will lose those controls. So I think if we do it right, and, whenever we're applying for funding, they're always looking for dual end results coming out of this stuff. So what are you going to be doing? Okay, we're going to bring down the fire load, so that's going to help municipality. You're helping wildlife.
Yeah.
What else are we getting out of it? So it's a combination thing, and that's the part again. If we can get it, once we start to burn, then we'll really kind of ramp up how we want to get that messaging out to the non-hunting public and the general public. This is why this is important.
And predators are kind of in that equation as well, too, right? When they're in these thicker treated areas, the ungulates don't have as good of an opportunity to escape predators, from what I understand. So
yeah, especially sheep, right? They're such a visual animal. So if they're living in thicker timber or grasslands, like you can have timber, but you can have open grasslands where you can see in those old Douglas fir stands, you could see 180 yards or 100 yards through those stands, and sheep can pick up that movement.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely has an impact on when you start to get that ingrowth on how they use habitat and what they become susceptible to for that predator, especially cats.
So I think we have 4 species of sheep in BC.
Yeah.
Do you find that there are certain species that need more attention or help right now than the other ones? Like, it seems like stone sheep and the California bighorns in this area are getting some attention, but what about the like Rocky Mountain or the Dalls? Do you guys work with them much?
Dall sheep we haven't really done much with. They're kind of up in that northwest corner of the province.
Yep.
And I'll probably talk to Bill Jex a bit more, but we've done some thin-horn stuff on genetic stuff that's just come out. Zinjan Sim out of University of Alberta just has done some DNA genetics off of the horncore samples. And basically what he discovered was that the stone sheep on the Yukon were actually Dall sheep. They'd just gotten darker.
Oh,
interesting.
I'm pretty sure the Dall sheep that we have in our corner of our province are Dalls. I didn't quite get I know he's doing a bunch more samples, but basically our stone sheep are BC's responsible for those stone sheep.
Right.
But stone sheep seem to be stable. Again, there's a lot of work going on up there with predator-prey relationships. Habitat's a big component for our sheep up there, and doing proper burns. It's not just, we're just going to burn that mountain. Because what we found is the impact is you increase your elk populations, and the elk will then move into the sheep range. Well, when the elk move up, they leave that trail. So then the wolves will follow their trail up to the sheep.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So,
there's always the secondary and third
Yeah.
effects.
Yeah. So what we've done, the burns we did this year were specifically targeted to sheep. So we started them high up on the upslope. We didn't start them down the bottom of the mountain. We started them up high. And then we're going to be looking at doing burns for elk specifically down in the lowland, lower down the mountain. Try and keep them down in wintering where they should be wintering and not up in those high areas. Rocky Mountain sheep, our Rocky Mountain bighorns, our populations were doing really well up until last year, and then we got that early snow.
Right.
And I don't know if some of those sheep didn't get to migrate out of those areas because the snow may have gotten too deep. I'm not 100%. It'll be interesting to see what we see this year. I haven't got those numbers back. I know there's some areas around Bull River that where numbers were low, so it's going to be interesting to see where those come in. California numbers were pretty good in the Okanagan Kamloops right now. Spence's Bridge, we've got Rockies there, and then some Californias on the lower part of the Fraser. They seem to be doing okay. The ones up around the Junction and Farwell Canyon, I think those ones, they seem to be stable. Churn Creek's really in the sewer. Oh. And I think that was a disease event we had about 19 years ago. So I guess coming, kind of leading into that, the disease issue is going to be our biggest issue within the province. Right. We probably won't transplant any more sheep around the province until we can actually sort out disease.
Right.
And where we can go with that. Fencing is not going to be the answer for that. It's going to be what can we do to move forward. Right now, separation is the only thing that works. Some really cool stuff going on around the actual agent of the disease. But generally, I would say our populations they're stable, apart from some specific ones where we've got disease issues going on.
Right. What's the degree of separation with the disease? Like, because we picture these animals being way out in the middle of these ranges, and it's like, well, the domestic sheep can't affect these animals, but at the same time, we talked about access before, so I'm not sure, like, how much separation do you actually need to ensure that, the domestics are keeping away? And
I guess leading into that would be the distance I'll kind of get into. Rams will wander up to 100 kilometers, which they have in Nevada. In BC, they may be a little less. We may be able to keep that down a bit. The issue is that our private land is where most of our domestics be. Well, most people live in BC or in winter range because we always live in the valleys. We're not on top of the mountains. So even though the sheep may go up top of the mountains where we think they should be, in the winter they come down in the lowland valley or in the rut. So they may, the ewes may move down the mountain. The rut occurs a little bit lower. Those younger rams may wander off and look for love in a different place. find some domestic sheep, get contact, they bring it back to the rest of the herd. Distance wise, from what we've been told, Dr. Tom Besser, he's the lead on this, probably is in that, it used to be 10 feet, but I'm in 10 to 30 feet. But there was a die-off that happened, and it was in they were doing a study on it, and they had some pen sheep, and the actual disease was airborne, and it traveled over 150 feet or something.
Wow.
So not quite sure what strain that went airborne. What we have discovered is that Mycoplasma ovi pneumonia is the agent that causes the pneumonia in the sheep. There's different strains. So some are harsher strains, some are not as harsh, where it causes the all age. And you can have the different percentage of die-offs, where you can have all age die-offs, or you can have a die-off, you got 6 sheep and 1 or 2 are dying. The strain's not as virulent. But then you get those other strains that are just deadly, and like at Chasm, we had 125 sheep and we're down to 25. So we know there was some prevalence. The last 2 rams there were shot. They were tested positive. We're pretty sure there's some ewes there that are going to test positive. We just haven't dealt with how we're going to deal with that herd of sheep yet.
What kind of methods are you using to monitor? Have you got collars on them in that, or?
Chasm, I don't think there's anything collared left up there. We're just looking at some new projects. I can delve into those, I guess, in a little bit.
Yeah.
Probably where we will end up collaring some sheep. Kamloops Ministry has got some collared sheep out there, basically looking at habitat and range usage, which is going to give us some feedback on how those rams are moving, whether they're moving, from Savannah down Tronquil that way, or at Ashcroft if they're moving back and forth to Spencer's. So we're getting some good information there. Jeremiah Yacht, our sheep separation coordinator, he's doing a project over at Bull River. There's a domestic sheep farm that we did a double fence on.
Oh, okay.
And he actually went and collared the bighorns there, tested them all. They all tested negative from Movi, so that was a positive.
Yeah.
Again, we're trying to figure out the usage and see whether they're coming into that pasture, whether we're getting close to the domestic sheep that are there, whether we need to work with the farmer or the producer to say, at this time you maybe need to move those sheep back if those bighorns are using that area. So we're going to get some habitat usage information out of that as well. So we've got some collars out there. There's not a lot of collars out in the field right now.
And then you guys are going out on foot and counting as well, right?
Yeah, and so that's another one of the cool projects. We do a count at Spencer's Bridge.
Right.
Karameas Fish and Game Club hosts an annual count. Kamloops Lake, I think Kamloops Fish and Game hosts an annual count, and they all kind of happen within 2 or 3 weekends of one another. So
yeah, we were hoping to go to that one this year, but we had the Interior Sportsman Show, so we hosted that, or emceed a day or 2 of that. So
yeah, I think that was the Spence's Bridge one. So if we were available, we would have gone for sure, because it seems like a good way to spend a weekend and go out there and So
count a bunch of sheep, test your optics.
Yeah.
Yeah, great way to go is meet some sheep hunters too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Kelly and I haven't hunted sheep. What is it about sheep hunting? We always hear guys, and it sounds like you do one sheep hunt and you're hooked.
I was going to say that would be my best advice. Don't go sheep hunting. Hopefully your wives aren't listening to this.
Yeah.
Again, for myself, I don't know what it was. There was a fascination around sheep.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a combination of where they lived, where you had to go, how you had to get there, and just they're pretty majestic animals, and I think that's part of the allure, I guess.
Right.
They're on our coat of arms, so when somebody came out with our coat of arms, they had the same inspiration, I think, that we do as sheep hunters today.
For sure.
But yeah, I think that's kind of what that's what started it off. And it's like, once you did one, and I was like, once I had done the first one, I was like, oh, it was such a misadventure. So I guess if I'm going to go into a story, this would be the time.
Sure, let's hear it. Yeah.
We were had hunted up north with my buddy Doug Field, and we'd been hunting moose around this place, and he goes, okay, well, do you guys want to go do something really cool? We'll go to the mountains. We'll do a flying trip. So I said, yeah, both me and Rod were game. I said, yeah, let's go. So we kind of got our backpacks. We didn't have too bad of backpacks. I think we had external frames. I think they were the moose bags
Okay.
at the time. And, we had our boots, and, we figured, okay, we got it all set. And we flew in. We flew out of Fort Nelson. And we landed on, so our big plan was we were going to land on Tetsa Lake, and we were going to hike from Tetsa Lake over to Shody Lakes and then get picked up. So first day we flew in to Tetsa Lake. There was a camp set up there, and yours had said, yeah, these guys have been in a week. They're flying out, and we weren't too concerned because we were going to hike out of the valley anyway. So we got there, loaded up our packs, off we went, and we hoofed up the valley, and we're just about at the headwaters. And we're kind of looking at which paths we can kind of go over. And Doug, our buddy, his soul ripped right off his hiking boot.
No.
Like, holy smokes.
This first day?
First day. Well, you're not hiking over there with that. So it's like, well, the plane's coming back in. Maybe you can fly your pair of hiking boots back in, and we can make this work. So we turned around, headed back down the valley. I think we duct taped up his sole so we could hoof her out. So we're going down. We see these caribou, and there was 2 bull caribou there, and one of them was legal and one of them wasn't. So it's like, okay, well, we know the plane's coming in, and we don't have to pack this thing. So Doug shot the caribou. We got the caribou, and we got back to the lake, set up our tent, and got all organized. And these guys came over, and they checking out the caribou, and he goes, oh, just checking to make sure you guys shot the right one. And we kind of, whatever. And then turns out they were 3 COs.
Oh, really?
So you never know who you're going to run into, right?
Yeah.
So they flew out. Urs flew us back in, got Doug's shoe size. His cousin lived there, so she picked up a pair of inexpensive hiking boots, flew him back in, and then at that point we switched. Okay, I said, I think Doug actually flew out, and me and Rod flew over to Shody Lake. So he flew us over to the lake, and then Doug came back in, and then we just said, okay, well, we're going to go hunt. We'll just hunt off at the Shody.
Right.
So we got all sorted out, headed out, hoofed her up this creek. Didn't really have an idea where we were going. We just I kind of knew where there should have been sheep. So we were heading that direction, and that's kind of what we started doing. So we hoofed her up there, and we started following the creek up, and then it narrowed right up into a gorge, and then we had to go up this straight up like this, and then we found a horse trail, and it's like, okay, and that took us over, and then dropped us back down. And I can remember hiking up the creek in our running shoes and our underwear and our backpacks on because it was so hot. But we checked out a couple of drainages, and we didn't really see much. We figured, well, it looks like pretty good sheep country, but we got up there, and we ran into another guy that was on horse, coming to get his camp, actually, his wall tent. He said, well, we were up there at the beginning of the year, and we did take a ram out of there, so you guys could check that valley out. So okay, we'll go scope that out. So we hoofed her up there, and yeah, sure enough, we connected on 2 sheep. So we came back down. It was like, we're pretty pumped now. But I think what we were fortunate. The weather was good. I don't think we had any rain. What we had for tent was a 3-man Canadian Tire tent.
Nice.
So cheaped out on the tent. Mm-hmm. We backpacked the felt packs in there. We had wool pants. Like I said, we had no idea what to take. We just said, okay, well, we're going to the mountains. We figure we might need this.
Yeah.
Is this August?
It was actually, I think it was either late August or early September. I think it might have been that first week of September.
Yep.
So the felt packs didn't make it out. Wool pants didn't make it out. That stuff stayed. We lightened our load because we had some sheep, capes, meat, and all that stuff. I remember my buddy, we come back to camp one night, and we had done our laundry, and you could see these wool socks. There's a trail of wool socks heading up the mountain. What the heck's going on? And we start looking, and sure enough, porcupine had come into camp. Started stealing us socks. So I'm laughing, and Rod's got no socks left. I'm laughing my head off at him, and all of a sudden he goes and he's picking up his socks, and he disappears. He took his gun, and About 20 minutes later, hear this bang. He goes, "Got that bastard." Take my socks anymore.
Nice.
So that was kind of our first sheep trip. But
Yeah.
like I said, we had no idea what we were getting into. We knew
Right.
we were going to the mountains, but again, with the gear that's out there today.
Yeah.
I think
And you made it out with a caribou and 2 sheep.
Oh, well, I guess I should
And
finish
a
the story.
porcupine.
Made her back to the lake. I think we were a couple of days. We had to wait for the plane to come back in. So we're in camp. And we're just on the beach. And I think it was the first day, the next morning after we got back down. And Doug had gotten up and me and Rod are still laying in bed. And he goes, pokes his head back in the tent. He goes, "Anybody want to shoot a moose?" I said, "Sure, we could use some meat." So we got up, ended up shooting this moose. So Doug took the first shot, and it started swimming. So it was right where the river runs out of the Chody Lakes. And I shot it, and I shot it in the hump, and it died right away. But then it's floating down the middle of the river.
shit.
We've got no boat, so we're still in our underwear. On the beach, so I'm sprinting down the beach, diving in the river. I didn't think about how cold it was going to be, and I'm swimming out to this moose, and I'm probably from here to your way, Mike,
Right.
and I'm thinking, I wonder if this thing's still alive. I'm going to get the crap kicked out of me. And so I'm looking and I go, "Nah, it's pretty well dead." So I grab the horn and start swimming back in.
Oh,
and
wow.
by then the cold water's like, oh, I could feel it. And then Doug just got out there and he grabbed the other horn and we managed to pull it back into shore.
Jeez.
So it was a
have been-
pretty successful trip, but yeah,
Yeah,
full
I'd
of
say so.
adventure. Anything you could probably, I mean, if you tried to script something like that, there's no way.
No. Awesome.
Yeah. I think that's we're planning a a northern hunt. I think
I think ours is going to be just like that without any of the animals.
I think you guys should have some success up there. Like I say, if you do your research, find the areas you want to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, for your listeners, to me, the most important thing is your optics.
yeah.
First and foremost, boots probably second.
Yeah.
Make sure your pack's comfortable. And when we talked about it a little earlier, what do you need? I mean, there's some really cool gear out there. It gets pretty technical. I
For
think
sure.
if you've got the right gear, you'll be fine. Do you need
Yeah.
Right.
do you need X at the top or not? I don't know, but like I said, I've hunted in flannel shirts and stuff. But optics, if you can see what you're trying to hunt, it's going to save you a lot of wear and tear on your feet and a lot
Yeah,
of
for
time.
sure. Definitely.
What's your thought on going up to northern BC in like first half or August, late August, early September versus late September, early October? Like, is there a massive difference between the type of weather you can run into?
Definitely weather-wise, to me, I'd be looking at, first off, what you want to hunt, what species. If you're going to go sheep, I'd probably be looking at, a lot of guys like to go August 1st. Some guys like to go end of August after the bulk of the sheep hunters have gone.
Right.
If you're going to go after moose and elk, a lot of guys are looking at September. And then depending on your caribou, if it's open, if it's GOS, or if it's a draw, it'll dictate that time on your caribou when you
Right.
want to go. So kind of what species you're looking at, mode of transportation. If you're flying into a lake, you're probably okay. If you're going to go by riverboat, rivers are starting to come down pretty substantially by late September.
Right.
What about by foot?
Well, if you're hiking, you're good to go, right?
It is.
Yeah.
So
I think our plans have shifted probably 10 times already for this year because
Yeah.
it sort of depended on our LEH, which we were unsuccessful on. So I think we're going to be going in on foot, but we've done a lot of research on one area in particular in the northern BC that I think we're going to fly into next year is
Yeah.
the plan. So, but this year we're going to be on foot. So
Yeah, it's kind of just go up there and experience it, play it by ear in terms of how far in we're going to go.
yeah.
But I mean, if we come back with nothing but pictures and some
good stories,
experience,
yeah.
then that's good too.
Yeah.
But yeah, the next year we're going to do the flying.
Yeah, I mean, like, and different sides of BC. Like, I mean, Region 6 is completely different to Region 7 too.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that dictates too. Like, if I was going to Region 6 and I was going to be on foot, that you'd be flying in and making sure you're in the heart of where you need to be, where the northern eastern BC, you can you can get in some really good spots off that highway,
Right.
hiking in and putting your time in. And generally, if you've got it didn't matter what we did, whether we flew in or whether we did river boats or what we were doing. We found if we were a day away from wherever place you started,
Right.
everybody seemed to stop about that day out. We always seem to venture. And we have that bad case of, I need to know what's on the other side of the mountain. So it'll.
I've got a bit of that too. Yeah.
So you're done. If you ever shoot a sheep, you're done, right?
Yeah, you're gonna have to start a sheep fund.
Yeah.
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 But I mean, if you get we found if we got 2 or 3 days away from either the lake or the river or whatever, we found we were the only people there.
Right.
And
Okay.
I mean, I was really fortunate when we started hunting with Doug. Doug lives in Dawson Creek, and he had some horses. And before we did our first horse trip, he made us come up there in the spring, and we did a horse trip because that was always one of my dream things.
That's another one on our list too.
And he goes, well, we'll come up spring bear hunting, and we'll just do a quick trip around and make sure you guys are good to go with packing, and make sure his comfort level was okay with us as well.
Right.
So the first horse, I mean, we did a horse trip for 20 years in a row.
Wow.
Into the mountains. So this was the odd one I'd miss, but either Rod would go or Rod missed one and I would go. And for 20 years we did a horseback trip to the mountains. So we hunted the Bessa and we hunted the halfway, and we were spoiled essentially. But I mean, I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. It was spectacular.
Yeah, I bet.
Awesome. Yeah, that's on the list. I think 1 year is some type of horse hunting trip.
That's a working vacation, I'll warn you right now.
Yeah, I've heard that. I know a couple guys that have horses, and I mean, it's all romantic when you think about it, but then you're liable for that horse when you're out there too, right? Like, you got to feed them, you got to look after them, you got to watch out for them.
Yeah.
If something happens, then what?
Yeah, first thing in the morning is you get up, you let the horses out, you let them get as much grub in them as you can, put the coffee on, have some breakfast. I mean, we were bad. We'd get up, do our horses, have our breakfast. We probably wouldn't leave camp until noon.
Oh yeah.
So some guys like to do it, they get up, go hunt from camp, come back to camp, have breakfast, and then go for an evening hunt. We'd saddle up 3 horses and we'd disappear. So, if we left camp at noon, we knew we were coming back around 10 or 11. We'd be riding back in the dark.
Yeah.
So it was just a different way of approaching how we hunted. We always liked to hunt that evening hunt.
Yeah.
And we were always successful. So
You can get further too, right?
oh yeah, we would get to some places we probably shouldn't have, but
Nice. Well, it sounds like that was a successful plan.
yeah, no,
In most cases.
It was a lot of fun. We rode through meadows and in the dark, and you'd be having horse races and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah, well, I think that's probably it's always so hard to describe, and I think you were having that same issue of just trying to interpret why hunting is what it is, you know what I mean, and why we keep getting drawn back out there to do it again. But I think it's just the adventure and the stories and getting away from everything, and it's there's a deep connection there, and I think a lot of people are missing that, and you don't know that until you get out there and do it. So
No, I think Shane Mahoney summed it up best. I mean, did he tell you the story about the barbecue?
In terms of sharing,
Well, he had a story about do you know why we stand around the barbecue when we're cooking steaks and stuff?
yeah, I heard some examples. The other one was the candle. Why do we still use candles, or why do we have a fireplace in our house? It all goes back to that traditional thing, right?
It's something that's ingrained deeply, and we don't realize that it's there, right? And, we stand around cooking a steak because that's what we used to do.
Yep.
Thousands of years ago.
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wish, when I listen to the news, even with Trump or whatever, I kind of want to take them and put them on a horse and send them out into the range, and then I don't know. I think he kind of needs 10 minutes to maybe think things through a little bit, but
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know. I just feel like when we go out there, it kind of, you hit the reset button on your whole life, and you get a chance to actually put things into perspective. Your stress goes down.
Yeah, it's amazing how good you feel when you get back.
Yeah,
from,
it's he puts everything into perspective. So,
Yeah, it's just coming back to that perspective thing. We were in the mountains when 9/11 occurred,
Oh, wow.
so we didn't even know about it. So what happened is we actually shot a couple of animals, and we were making a meat run out, and we ran into some guys coming in, and they'd said, that somebody's flown a couple of planes into the World Trade Center, and we're thinking, you guys are just drunk, you're feeling a line here. And Doug and Rod had gone out, and they came back, and they brought a newspaper and realized that is, and there are no newspapers, there are phones now, unfortunately,
Right.
but if we hadn't have been going out, we wouldn't have known until we came out 2 weeks later.
Right.
So it kind of puts things in that perspective. As I have this saying that the world will not stop whether I'm there or not.
Right.
It keeps going.
Yeah.
So if I'm out in the bush, it's going to keep going on. Somebody may be mad at me, but it's still going to keep going whether I'm there or not.
Yeah.
yep.
So that always allowed me to relax and just enjoy what we were out there doing, and just that camaraderie. And
It's one of the reasons why Kelly got an inReach this year, and I like the safety aspect of it, but I also don't like being able to have people contact me. I just like to get away from all of it. There's some weird, I don't know, mental thing for me, and just knowing that people can contact me. I'd rather just not know what's going on back here and just kind of be fully engulfed with the outdoors and focused on that. But
yeah.
it's good to be safe too. If something happens.
Yeah, I mean that's the safety level of it. Is if something does happen, you can get there and you have a chance to survive. And
For sure.
the way we were doing it, there was no way. The Pony Express was not going to save us.
Yeah.
No. Good. Well, I think we've already blasted through an hour of your time here. If guys want to get involved with the Wild Sheep Society BC, what kind of stuff can they do?
Well, I think the best thing, the first and foremost thing, is become a member.
Yeah.
Become a member of an organization you want to be part of. Something that you believe is going to be positive, that's going to represent your ideals. Join up, become a member. That's your first step. And then once you've been involved as a member, if you want to run for the board, you got the opportunity to run for the boards.
Right.
But find it, and I kind of go back to the sheep stuff in the States because we've got chapters and affiliates.
Right.
Again, best thing is just become a member, become passionate about what you're doing. Go to those conventions. You're going to meet a lot of people. You're going to pick up some good information.
Yeah.
And the sheep family is a family.
Right. Sounds like it.
Gray Thornton sums it up the best for me is one tent, one campfire. If you can bring everybody together and we're all doing the same thing, then we become unstoppable.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are the kind of the big things. If you're talking to a non-hunter, I always educate them.
Right.
I mean, I had a trophy room set up before in Victoria, and my kids' friends had come over, and they were all non-hunters, and they'd never been exposed to this stuff. Well, they always ended up in my trophy room. They weren't offended by it. They were offended by what people told them they should be offended by. Until they got ingrained with that. They were exposed to it. They'd be in there looking at that, and, they could touch the hides. And my kids grew up with it.
Right.
They grew up eating meat.
Yeah.
So I think that exposure to other kids
It's important.
if you can educate people around that again, it was a component that you could do.
For sure.
So
Yeah, that's part of what we're trying to do too, because we're kind of in a neat position because we got into this late in the game that we can look at both sides, and really try and sort of put into words why this is important.
I think you guys can share a true perspective of what it is about that maybe that I can't share as much as you guys can. I think that's critical to what we're doing. So.
Yeah, because it's still pretty close in our memory, like what our view of hunting was, 4 years ago, and to what it is now. And it's changed. Even in the year that we've been doing this podcast, you can hear our opinions change quite a bit over just 1 year. So some of those
certain topics in particular.
Yeah.
I think before, I don't know if we weren't anti-hunting by any means, but just more of an indifference really to we don't know why people are so into this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's obviously changed a lot since then.
Once you start sharing the food that you brought home, it's something big there for sure too.
Yeah.
And if you butcher the animal yourself and turn it into sausage yourself or do that, hands-on piece, then it's amplified even more.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike and I have done a lot of that recently, and we've kind of gone through a learning curve of, how to make your own sausage and season it and do all that kind of stuff, which is, that's an awesome process, but it's a lot of work. Like by the time you put in the work to get the animal, you get it back home, you butcher it, you turn it into food, like that spans out over about 3 to 4 months, depending on how quickly you turn it into food, right?
Yeah.
So it's a huge process.
Mm-hmm.
But rewarding.
Yeah,
Very,
you get pride
extremely.
from it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Well, before we let you go, anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
I think probably just a couple of things. We kind of touched on the disease thing a bit around the wild domestic stuff. The one thing that we're working on right now is looking at making MOVI-free domestic sheep, so mycoplasma ovine free sheep. We've got the capacity within the province to test sheep from a nasal swab to see if they carry, I'll call it OV, if they're positive or negative. If they're negative, then you can start looking at, switching sheep out that are positive and make those OV-free flocks. What we want to potentially do is give kids 4-H sheep that are MOV-free that they can use for their 4-H shows if they're living in high-risk areas. So in the Okanagan Valley here, we're not limiting opportunity, but we're also looking at it as an educational component that we're educating if we can educate the kids, they're going to suck up this knowledge way more than an adult will.
For sure.
So it's pretty exciting what's going on. Applications will be going out later this year for this. So we're looking at a couple of flocks to try and make them MOVI free. And if we can, then the implications and ramifications around that are going to be very significant around the disease issue. So there's some pretty exciting stuff going on in that regard. I think, I don't know if Jesse touched on it when he was on, but the Jurassic Classic that's coming up in August.
No.
Another partnership program, Guide Outfitters, BC Wildlife Federation, Wild Sheep Society, BC Wild Sheep Foundation, fishing tournament in Abbotsford in August, or in Chilliwack. And what it is 30 teams of anglers, so two guys per team, 30 teams, fishing tournament for 2 days. All the money that is raised will go back into sheep projects within the province. So last year, those guys, I think they put $15,000-$16,000 on the ground in sheep projects. They funded $4,000 to the Seroptes Mite project that's ongoing in Penticton. That burn in Tashodi, and one of the burners that we're trying to do in the Okanagan. And one of the cool things, the $4,000 for the burn in here, is that $4,000 we get a 3-to-1 match on it, so we can take that $4,000 and turn it into $16,000.
Excellent.
Doing a prescription. You go to operations, that $4,000 we can turn into $36,000 by using the province's money. So some really cool stuff that's going to go on. Habitat and disease stuff. I mean, the Seroptes Mite project in Penticton. Another great partnership. Guide Outfitters, BC Wildlife Federation, Penticton Indian Band, Wild Sheep Society of BC. Wild Sheep Foundation, just to see around that mite issue, whether we can treat it, if we can come up with something to treat those. Just some really good science stuff going on around sheep within the province.
Good.
Our convention, again, I mentioned it briefly earlier, our 25th year anniversary next March in Kamloops.
Cool.
It's going to be some really cool stuff. I might try and sneak back on with you guys late fall and fill you in with that.
For sure.
It's going to be really neat. So we're working on some really good stuff for that 25th year anniversary.
Perfect.
Do you have to be a member to go to the conventions?
You know what? You don't have to be. I would prefer that everybody that would come would be a member, because it would just boost our membership.
Yep.
One of the things that Kyle's working on that's pretty exciting, he's going to be coming out with a membership drive. I think it's coming out in July. He's got some backpacks from Barney's, some optics, a couple of optic packages. So we're going to come out with, if you sign up as a member, you get I think it's a ticket. If you sign up another member, you get 2 or 3 tickets into this draw. So some really good opportunities to win some prizes. So we really want to try and boost our membership prior to going into convention. And then, like I said, I think we've got over 300, close to 300 life members now. So we do a life members breakfast.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
So we got some passionate guys within the province. Like I think there's 2,500 tags sold. So if we could get our membership to 2,500,
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be a happy camper.
For sure.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Which means I guess you guys are joining up this year then, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, it's looking like it.
I think we have
I think
to now,
we'll go
yeah.
to that. I know we had a couple people on Instagram saying you got to go to the convention in Kamloops.
Yeah.
We'll try to get there next year on the next one.
Yeah, I think
So,
you guys
because
would
I think-
really enjoy it.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
March, April.
It's March 9th and 10th next year.
Yeah.
Cool.
If you guys do make it, I can line you up, or you guys could do an actual podcast.
That would
from
be
the
awesome.
convention.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
that'd be
sure.
awesome.
Be a lot of fun. So yeah, definitely. It seems like every year we can learn about all these events that are happening throughout BC and even in the States and stuff like that. So we want to make a real effort to make sure that we do some of this stuff next year because it's important and it's a great way to meet people, like you said. So
Yeah. Like I say, the sheep hunting family is a pretty neat community. Like I say, a lot of really nice people, a lot of passionate people. I would say sheep hunters are the most passionate guys out there.
cool.
A little bit nutty, but we're the most passionate and most persistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we mentioned that just getting into the hunting community and through this, you meet one person and all of a sudden you're talking to 10 and it's a small world, but you're right. It seems like when you get into the sheep world, it's even smaller again and they're even more passionate. Like
Smaller
the
in a good way
passion.
though, yeah.
Yeah, they know the stakes are high, right?
Yeah,
Like you want to keep those animals on the mountain. So it seems like they band together.
yeah. It's funny, you kind of, if you wear the BC hat, and where I started off was just, looking at BC stuff. And then when I got elected to Wild Sheep Foundation nationally, it just opens your eyes up to those other chapter and affiliates in the US and even in Canada. But how all integral their issues are pretty well similar to our issues. So, by finally talking to everybody, and again, this chapter affiliates meeting that's going on this week, it's pretty good because everybody gets to do that networking.
Right.
Now, Jack Ashton's vision, he's our conservation chairman for Wild Sheep Foundation. He came out with a conservation plan for North American sheep. It's called our CVA 2020. But he's looking at taking that internationally. And what we're looking at is horn plugging in Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. So they're going to start implementing a horn curl program over there to stop illegal poaching. And
Oh, wow.
so you kind of see that sheep world starting to grow
Yeah.
bigger, right? And it becomes international. So you take it from where we are in BC, but then...
What's the horn curl program?
So they're going to plug, in BC, we have any sheep that you shoot goes to a CO or an inspector and it gets drilled and plugged. And over there, they don't have that program.
Oh, okay.
So they're going to drill and plug horns over there so they can actually start to track their sheep horns over there.
Cool.
Good. Well, I feel like I think things are starting to go in the right direction as far as conservation goes, and I think it's just continuing to educate people and get people involved, and just keeping things moving forward. So
That's the biggest thing.
we're
Like I
lucky to
say,
have.
my hat's off to you guys for spreading the word.
Well, likewise, guys like
perfect.
you that are out there making these things happen too. So
Yeah, if you want to come in again, let us know. And if anybody you think we should be talking to, let us know as well.
Yeah, like I say, I'd recommend Graythorne. I think he'd be phenomenal on your guys' show,
Cool.
and I think you guys would really enjoy his insights.
Cool.
He started off late hunting too.
Good.
He didn't hunt. He was a fisherman too,
okay, yeah,
and didn't get into the hunting world. And he's got some really good insights.
cool.
On global stuff, but also within North America. I think he'd be a really good
Cool.
good fit for you guys.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it at that. Thanks a lot for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me,
Yeah.
guys. It was a pleasure, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Good.
Okay.
No problem.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.